Meanwhile, back on the Western Front, here's a rare Avro 504 of the type that saw frontline action with the Royal Flying Corps until about 1915. But the docile Avro was relegated to a training role when this more modern Sopwith Pup came along in 1916. These old planes, flown by a handful of nostalgic aviators like the men here at Rhinebeck, New York, take us back to a time 60 years ago when history met the first of a whole new breed, the air aces, names that will stay with us forever like Richthofen and Rickenbacker. In this reenactment, the German triplane is about to have a British Sopwith Pup for breakfast. The make-believe Baron of Rhinebeck mixes it up with the Allies, each plane vying to get on the tail of the other, each intended victim twisting and turning to shake off his pursuer. Guns blazing and the Sopwith Pup's in trouble. Diving in low over the Rhinebeck aerodrome, you can see smoke streaming out from under the Pup's cowl. The Baron still very much on the offensive. It's a black day for the good guys of Rhinebeck. But it's all in fun as both Pup and triplane return to the aerodrome to fly another day. The rotary engines in these old birds make them particularly tough to handle. A rotary is either full on or off, with a bleep switch to cut it out intermittently on landing approaches like this. You can see bursts of smoke each time the pilot bleeps the engine on again. Hot air ballooning is the coming thing these days, and no air show would be complete without a real live hot air balloon ascension. And while we're back in Nostalgia Corner, let's take a look at this beautiful Curtis Jenny, the first-line American trainer during World War I. You know, a young man named Lindbergh bought one of these after the war for about $500. Today they cost $50,000 if you can find one. And now it's jumpers away as this seemingly endless stream of skydiving fanatics plunge into the clear blue sky from 13,000 feet. Free falling at speeds of up to 220 miles per hour. Flying like birds to link hands in this 10-man circle. The leader on the far side of the circle waits until the ring is perfect, then calls for a break. Then it's pull the ripcord and see you on the ground, pal. All chutes properly deployed, the jumpers now pick their spots up and down the airshow line for what are usually beautiful stand-up landings. World champion Charlie Hillard leads this Red Devil formation upside down. The national champ Tom Poveresny puts his pit special through a series of diving rolls. And three-time champ Gene Soucy executes a 4-point vertical roll. 2, 3, and 4. Hang gliding and kite flying are a novelty at air shows. Though considered a safe pastime by enthusiasts, accidents will happen in any sport. 2 days after 26-year-old Robert Harris Kennedy made this successful flight at the Transpo 72 air show near Washington, he was killed in a faulty takeoff. But when things went right, they were beautiful. Watch this spectacular bird-like landing. There's the flare and touchdown. Over the top in the second half of a Cuban 8, flying his hands like wings to help him stay in place, diving inverted through their own trail of airshow smoke, finally rolling upright again. It's the one and only team of Hughes and Cajun. That's Johnny Cajun on the top of the wing of that beautiful 650 horsepower Super Stearman piloted by Joe Hughes. Johnny leans back against that brace with only one strap to hold him in place during these maneuvers. Watch as Joe executes a perfect 8-point hesitation roll. Count the points. 5, 6, 7, 8. Now rolling inverted again, Joe waves goodbye to us with Johnny. Now we get a bird's eye view of some famous World War II fighter aircraft flown by members of the Confederate Air Force in the skies of Texas over Rebel Field. This is the P51 Mustang recovering from a half loop with a 1.5 slow roll. Look at the magnificent lines of that perfectly restored aircraft. There's one complete roll. Now slowly, with a little forward pressure on the stick, it's back to the upright position once again. Not to be outdone, this P-38 Lightning pilot says, by golly, if that Mustang can roll like that for you, so can I. And roll he does, all the way around. Here's a rare Spitfire, one-time mainstay of the Royal Air Force, screaming in low and fast over the Texas prairie. Also from the Battle of Britain, one of the few remaining German Messerschmitt 109s. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a rare look at these two old enemies flying in formation. Now to another theater of war, this one in the Pacific, and a replica of the notorious Imperial Japanese Zero. Over the top in a half loop, rolling the aircraft out now, exchanging altitude for airspeed. And here's a sight that made many an Allied tail gunner wish he'd stayed home in bed. The antiquers enjoy getting in on the act. Here, from the era of the barnstormer, comes the fleet. How about that pretty little loop? These planes were built by Consolidated Aircraft back in the early 30s. Some once wore Army insignia. Today, most of these fine old planes have rotted to dust. Home builders also fly to many of these shows, even though it might be easier to come on a bicycle. This home-built two-seater is called the Breezy. I don't know why. Formation aerobatics now by the Waco Meteor team of Harry Shepard and Larry Kingery. Watch as they manipulate their beautiful Italian F-260s through an ever-changing sequence of unusual attitudes while flying as close as 24 inches to one another. Watch as they roll to the canopy-to-canopy position and ease the two planes back into extremely close proximity. That's Shepard upside down and Kingery right side up. Or is it Kingery upside down and Shepard right side up? Or... oh, nuts. If you think two-plane formation is fun, why don't you try it with 9? These are the famous Red Arrows of Great Britain's Royal Air Force. The team is flying the Hawker Siddeley Nat Mark I. Little planes by today's military standards that weigh in at just over 8,000 pounds soaking wet. Here we see squadron leader Ian Dick directing his flight through the Red Arrow's famous wine glass roll. Bob Hoover calls this his famous Tennessee Waltz. Here, Bob waltzes to a series of one-wheel landings in that Rockwell International P-51. There's 1, 2, and 3. Watch that right wingtip, Bob. Tail sliding his Super Chipmunk is only the beginning of this sequence by the one and only Art Scholl. Art recovers upside down, pushing on the stick, hanging in his harness. He's going to pick up a ribbon strung between two poles only 10 feet high. He'll catch it with the airplane's tail. There's a final correction, a little more right rudder. He got it! Now rolling right side up with a hesitation at the knife edge position. And with that, Art calls it a day. That's Art Scholl, ladies and gentlemen, the aeronautics professor from San Bernardino, California. These are the famous F-4 Phantoms flown by the United States Air Force Thunderbirds. Captain Jerry Bolt wastes no time in slipping his big plane into the slot position as Colonel Tom Swalm leads his team straight up and away. Then solo man Steve Dwelly takes off in a manner few people anywhere could call routine. After that rolling takeoff, just pull back on the stick and fly straight to space. From a standing start, the F-4 can take off and climb to an altitude of 4 miles in 48 seconds. It has a top speed of 1,600 miles an hour. Here, the 5 members of the Thunderbirds demonstration team have formed up in echelon or V formation for a high G right turn, in which each man feels about 4 times the pressure of gravity. Those are the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds. This is the U.S. Navy flight demonstration team, the Blue Angels. They also fly the Phantom F-4. And here's what a formation takeoff looks like as seen from the tail of Lieutenant Bill Switzer's slot airplane. The planes are airborne. Afterburners are on. And as the gear retracts into the wells, Switzer moves his number 4 aircraft right into that slot position. The red airshow smoke is turned on. And with 36 inches separating these 45,000-pound giants of the airshow circuit, the thrills begin. These all-weather Phantom fighters hold 16 world performance records. Lieutenant Commander Skip Umstead, lead solo pilot, rolls on takeoff with the landing gear still extended. Here is a demonstration of the tremendous power as well as the slow speed maneuverability of the Phantom. Solo pilot, Lieutenant Steve Lambert in Blue Angel number 6 is the last man to take to the air, and the team is complete. Having broken from their traditional diamond formation, Lieutenant Commander Don Bentley leads his flight in an in-trail loop. Each Phantom is stepped down or just a few feet under the preceding aircraft. That's Captain Mike Murphy, a Marine in Blue Angel number 2, Lieutenant Bill Beardsley in number 3, and Lieutenant Switzer in number 4. Here is what the last half of the loop looks like from the unusual vantage point of Steve Lambert's tail section. There's not much future in going straight down, so Steve pulls out, experiencing 5 Gs on the way. Now from the opposite direction comes Skip Umstead. The closing rate here is over 1,000 miles per hour. Meanwhile, Don Bentley prepares his formation for a pass in front of the grandstand by calling for the formation to break Then reform on his plane again. But now Bentley is hanging upside down on his harness. Back together again, the Blues pass in front of an amazed crowd. This is a variation on the Blues' famous diamond formation called the Farvel. Throughout each maneuver, the pilots maintain their standard 36-inch separation between planes, as you see here. Now Commander Bentley calls for room to roll upright again, and once more the formation disperses. Meanwhile, Steve Lambert streaks back across the field again to show us a fantastic series of fast aileron rolls. Brace yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Now Skip Umstead in Blue Angel number 5 demonstrates an almost endless series of vertical rolls, recovering at the top with a split S. All 6 planes are formed up in a delta formation now for the delta vertical break. Diving vertically for the ground, Commander Bentley calls for airshow smoke on, then for the pitch out. And as the delta formation disperses, only trails of red and white smoke are left drifting in the blue sky.